Good morning and welcome back to the Now Morning Show, where today we are talking zero discrimination. The conversation continues along the themes of our music, Love is Love, as our next guest is going to explore not just discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender, but some workplace advice, as he is a man of many hats. We welcome back to the Now Morning Show Mr. Rudolph Hanamji. Rudy, actually,
that's fine.
our co-host
Good
this morning, no stranger to the Now set,
no.
who today will be talking, yes, on behalf of the LGBTQ plus community,
Yes.
in addition to his expertise as a business development manager at EY Caribbean. Good morning and welcome
Thank you again. Good morning. Great to be here.
It is important that you are here because
you.
the conversation is one that some persons may skate around or generally be misinformed on.
Agreed.
So to begin, or to even continue from that of the AOC or earlier guests this morning, let's define discrimination specifically based on sexual orientation and gender.
That is an excellent starting point because discrimination is a very unique and subjective experience. So legally, or if you go by the definition within a dictionary, it's generally when someone is excluded based on a specific characteristic.
Right.
But in real life, discrimination takes many shades, many forms. Women, I believe, share the closest intersectional relationship with queer persons because for so many years, women experienced microaggressions in the workplace. They were locked out of institutions and access. So in today's world, you can see, for example, a US ambassador or a president of a country, like Trinidad and Tobago, as a woman. Years ago, that was not the place. But if you were to ask women, and still today, how are you discriminated against, you'll get many different answers.
Right.
It's the same in the queer community. So trans persons within the segment are still the most vulnerable. They cannot access employment or health care as easily as, let's say, a gay man might be able to.
Right.
So my experience, especially as a privileged member of the community, will be slightly different to someone who is more vulnerable.
Right.
So it's a very complex issue and people have to approach it from a lens of compassion.
I do appreciate that you acknowledge the privilege that you may hold. You are also the youngest openly gay politician and served as a former national executive member for the COP,
Yes.
just to give some context.
Yes.
And that means that you have access, or unprecedented access almost, to a lot of legislature, not just in terms of receiving it, but influencing it as well. So let's go deeper into how this manifests itself, not just within the queer population, but what this looks like legally for us as a country.
You know, the Equal Opportunities Commission was on earlier, and to reinforce, the Equal Opportunity Act is, to my mind, the only piece of legislation in this country that specifically excludes a class of citizens. It actually says in the preamble at the definition stage, sex does not include sexual orientation. And therefore, as a gay man, if my workplace or any workplace were to discriminate against me, I could not go before the Equal Opportunities Tribunal. Jason Jones also brought a case against the state for the buggery laws, which affects not just queer persons, but straight people as well.
Right.
The High Court said that the case was correct and that the act is unconstitutional, yet we are appealing it all the way to the Privy Council. In the healthcare arena, there is still a provision that asks someone who is donating blood, do you engage in homosexual acts? And someone may use that to discriminate against someone. So I may not even be able to save my own life or that of a loved one.
Right. So some definite gaps there in
huge gaps
that we can probably explore, or hopefully explore, in the near future. Let's go a little bit on the brighter side,
Yes.
a little bit on the positives, because we have been able to see strides where our pride is concerned. We have celebrated, is it 5 years of
Yes,
public pride?
this year will be 6 coming.
Nice. And 3 successful parades.
Yes.
Isn't it better for persons of the LGBTQ plus community in Trinidad and Tobago?
It is getting better. The best analogy would be an abused person saying, well, I only get licks on a Thursday.
Oh, jeez.
Because, again, up to Christmas Day, this Christmas gone, we got a call at PrideTT from a young man who was put out of his home by his family. We get many calls and emails of examples like that.
Right.
Again, it is focused in spaces where the community members are more vulnerable. But I have friends who are well educated, well employed, and yet they still feel disempowered. Raymond Chukong, before he passed away, he said that in the first Pride, in his entire life, that was the first time that he was able to openly feel comfortable to identify as a gay man. That is not good. That is an icon of our country.
Absolutely.
So these things have to be looked at, but we are seeing an increased acceptance within the population. We can have these conversations openly, no pun intended. And even, for example, in the police service, they created a gender-based violence unit and educated officers about some of our particular issues.
Right.
And we've seen improvements in the service.
Right.
So it is getting better.
It is getting better. There is hope.
There is hope.
And in that case, what would a better or even better look like? What are the hopes or aspirations, the needs of the queer community?
So the former Attorney General identified 26 provisions in law, for example, that he said affected queer persons. I think in PrideTT, we developed a little booklet that was called Towards a Just Society, and we disseminated this to all 41 parliamentarians. As a matter of fact, you may recall the opposition leader recently included LGBT in one of her speeches, mm-hmm. and that was the first time that a leading politician used that acronym.
Right.
So Parliament can, in quick order, change some of these provisions that exclude us, and like my workplace, EY, for many years, donkey's years as the old people say, has had provisions that protect and include its employees regardless of what the national legislation says.
Right.
So other companies can take and follow suit. Last year we held the DEI conference, Diversity, Inclusion, Equity mm-hmm. conference, and other leading companies like Ansel McCall and Hadco and Scotiabank also presented to the public that they had these type of proactive solutions.
Beautiful.
So that is what the ideal would look like, where the majority of the business community adopts these provisions mm-hmm. and Parliament gets up one morning and says, you know what, out of these 26 pieces, the community is asking for us to focus on these 5, let's change these and let's move ahead as a society.
So we know what corporate Trinidad and Tobago can do, we know what our government can do. What can we as individuals do?
I love that question because at the end of the day, the queer community has many allies. We just came out of Carnival. Chances are, if you played mass, you jumped up in a queer designer's costume. You probably had your makeup done by a queer person, your hair. We are your teachers, your doctors, your nurses, your garbage men, doubles vendors. Just be our allies. If you hear someone speak in a derogatory manner, correct them. Mm-hmm. If in your family or workplace or in your school system you see bullying or harassment taking place, stand up and join with us because we all share similar issues, and if we all stick together, we can build a better, more inclusive Trinidad and Tobago.
And that's always what it's all about. Rudy, it's definitely not going to be the last time we have this conversation or have you on set. But for now, we're going to put a pin as we continue to stand together against discrimination.
Zero discrimination.
Zero,
thank you so much.
We say, against sexual orientation and gender. And we thank you ever so kindly for lending your expertise this morning. The Now Morning Show continues to keep you informed and have you entertained, because when we return, we celebrate birthdays, including Rockets' own.